Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the locker room. Reaching, plumbing new depths of amateurism. It is a kind of a road accident between Channel 31 and SBS television. It's Greg Blake back on deck with the crew, JFOT, John Fotty.
We're on the webcam tonight.
We're on the webcam tonight.
Difficulties.
And of course, down to our far left is Dougie Hodgson. We've got a very special guest in a minute. We're going to hold our ammunition. We can't get you to do a walk-on, Joe, but we'll get to you in a second. Welcome to everyone tonight. Facebook is great. Tonight, the Labor Party and Australia decides, and it's abundantly clear that none of us give a stuff, so we're just going to press on anyway. Thanks to our sponsors, Billy Pargas at Prime Plastic Bags, Boost Juice, Dougie Hodgson.
Doncaster, come and see me, guys.
And our other wonderful club sponsors, Northcote City FC, Sydney Olympic FC, and Heidelberg United Alexander FC. And of course, the wonderful Copacabana Club down there at 139 Smith Street, Fitzroy. Don't miss the Salsa Night, which is every Thursday, I understand.
They're going to have a big year next year with the World Cup being in Brazil. You know, the big samba rhythms and all of that happening down there.
Love a Brazilian...
Brazilian.
A Brazilian, an authentic Brazilian. We welcome our special guest. We'll talk about the news today. We're going to welcome our special guest because he's without doubt one of the most refined-looking and speaking guests that we've had on the show. He's also an ex-star of Heidelberg United Alexander. He's, of course, Joe Angele. Joe, welcome.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been a while since I've talked about the club. But,
and I know it's a bit of a culture shock walking into the room with these two chaps, but we appreciate you lowering your standards just for the next 20 minutes or so. Tell us quickly, Joe, what's your journey? Where's your journey taken you to in the it's nearly 3 decades since you played senior footy for Heidelberg?
Well, it's been a while, but believe it or not, I'm still playing, and I'm playing with Melbourne University these days in the 3rd division. So I haven't stopped kicking the ball because I have a philosophy about maintaining my fitness and physique, and I still play in the central defender's role. So. But I am a professional. I'm an architect, and I've worked on major projects since I left the club.
What's the biggest major project? Just as a point of reference for everybody that's looking to admire the work of this splendid young man.
We're talking about sports, so I would say the claim to fame would be the Dockland Stadium. I was the senior design architect on the stadium, so that was an experience. Haven't had the opportunity to play on the stadium. But I managed to design a stadium, which was something that
So underneath, a lot of people would see, like Amy Stadium was talking about, underneath there's some brilliant stuff. Obviously, being a player, you look underneath, the baths and the kitchen gym rooms and a lot of things that people don't see.
Yes, that's right.
What's underneath? Is there pools? Is there cold baths? Is there? What's there? Is there anything there?
Well, there's a car park, and that was the business side of the whole thing, was to ensure that there was car parking. But the planning of the stadium was on the basis that it was a corporate stadium, and it was all run by business. And of course, it was effectively an interactive stadium with regards to the spectators. And I'm sure if you've seen a football match there, it's quite a fantastic stadium to experience. The Colosseum nature.
It is a wonderful stadium, but it is also symbolic of Doug Hodgson's contribution to the locker room.
If you go to Amy Park, you've got gymnasium, there's a boxing ring.
Your lead question is, what is underneath? What is underneath Amy's
Well, it is a sporting stadium.
It is, absolutely.
Look, I appreciate that. I just really struggle to understand how your mind works. Joe, stay with us because we're going to do a lot of reminiscing later on. But let's go through news of the day. What's happening around the place? And I'll just have word through that Bill Shorten has supported Kevin Rudd in his bid to regain the Prime Ministership. So that's an interesting term. Thank you very much, Sweetie, for your topical contribution.
We're a Sweetie, we should point out.
We are,
and we should thank the Melbourne Knights, of course, as one of the other sponsors.
Wasn't that a fabulous show with Billy Wojtek a couple of weeks ago out there at Knight Stadium? What a wonderful man. JFOT, you've been all over the news of the day, and we'll bring Joe in as well to get his opinions, because I actually rather suspect that Joe's opinions will be more significant and balanced and sane than many of ours. But what are we working through tonight?
Since we were last on the show, of course, the Socceroos
have made it into their third straight World Cup, which is no mean feat, considering that before 2006 we'd only ever made the World Cup once. So that was a fantastic performance.
And you know the thing is too, what frightened me about that was I got into soccer journalism 2 years after the '74 World Cup, and I worked my way through 5 successive failed bids for the World Cup. I retired from soccer in 2002, and within 2 years they were back at the World Cup. So I rather thought it might be me being the pariah. So that's fantastic, though, isn't it?
It was a struggle, though, the Iraq game.
It was,
I don't know if Joe saw it.
Yes, indeed, I did. It was touch and go actually, and I thought that the substitutions that were made were clearly required, simply because something had to happen.
What wasn't a lucky roll of the dice?
I think he had his back up against the wall, I think, and he had to do something.
Nothing in the final third. There's
That's
nothing
right.
going. The midfield was flat. There's no moving up
That's
front. So
right.
we got two
That's
options. Analysis, break the game down. So if you looked at Cahill coming off, body language told a story.
Absolutely.
Body language was a lot different.
Oh, absolutely.
Josh Kennedy, Aubrey Wodonga boy. Why not? Great ball. Bresciano, great ball, but they changed it. They had to format it, give a bit more spunk in there to get it going, and it paid off.
And putting in, the Jesus, and he did extremely well with his head, and got
Great
us through.
ball by Bresciano.
Absolutely.
The question is, though, that I've got to ask the two ex-players, with Timmy Cahill, is he, in my opinion, he's not an out-and-out striker. Can they persist with that sort of going into the World Cup finals at all? You obviously will need someone like a main target man. Is Timmy Cahill the answer all the time? He seems to be the go-to man, but he can't always be there.
You know what, look at that, he's got a great vertical leap. He's done well in his career. Not going to sit here and knock him down. Is he the answer? Depending on what format you're going to play against. Does he play behind the front too? Yes. Can he be dynamite getting into
That would
great
be
areas?
more my way of
It
thinking.
depends on which way the gaffer's thinking about which way he's going to put the infrastructure into play. And you go, well, if he's behind, he can hurt teams. He can get into he does get into some great areas in the box, but is he an out-and-out striker? No.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You could probably understand if you're playing, say, a top nation, if they get grouped in with, say, a Spain or a Brazil, you might want to play with a more defensive lineup. But
I'd like Kennedy in there. He's a big boy. You got two options. He hasn't got bad feet. The boy can play. Cahill behind, 2 wickets on the outside, and bring people into play.
You're watching The Locker Room here on a Wednesday night. Special guest Joe Angele, along with our usual motley crew, Dougie Hodgson, of course, John Frodenos, and yours truly, what's left of Greg Blake after I've been dug from the crypt, if you will. And the one question I had during that World Cup game, Dougie, for me, I was transfixed. I just kept thinking, what's under that stadium?
Spa, changing rooms, showers, there's no baths, saunas. Is there a gymnasium? Is there a boxing ring? No, there's concrete and cars.
It's fascinating stuff to contemplate.
Amy Stadium, by the way, if you ever get a chance, go look at Amy Stadium and know exactly, because it is an art under there. They've done a fantastic job underneath.
Yes, that's right, and I think that's absolutely right. And where it falls on the wayside, I think, is in the experience. I like watching the game right up front, and I follow Hearts. My family backs Hearts. Beautiful. And effectively, the unfortunate thing about the stadium is that from a competitive perspective, if you're sitting in that front section of the arena and it happens to rain, you get drenched, and they're the premium seats in the whole stadium. So it's unfortunate.
Someone should have put a bigger roof.
Well, there's a story behind that, and I don't know if we've got the time for it. But
did you tell them though?
Well, it's all about costs, and it's all about structure, and unfortunately. Everywhere else in the world, the roof goes beyond.
Over the pitch because sometimes the wings don't get enough stuff.
Absolutely.
Joe, look, our special guest Joe Angele played at Heidelberg United Alexander for 3-4 years, I think, in the mid-1980s. When the club, to some extent, was starting to reach that period of decline as a great club, sure, if that's being respectful, and you're talking about watching Melbourne Heart now. I'm always interested in the perspective of former players and former NSL players. where you look at the game now and you say to yourself, you know, I'm really interested. I always think the standard of the NSL has been demeaned significantly, unfairly. In terms of relative standard, forget the stadiums, and the stadiums are great and the promotion's great, but just the game itself, what's your thoughts?
The game, I think players are a lot fitter. Obviously they're professionals and they have the opportunity to train, you know, most of those days. And so they're prepared physically, mentally, and they've also got infrastructure in place and support crews that obviously, you know, talk to them about their diets and so forth. So they're modern athletes. In terms of skill base, I still think, you know, I fall back to the days that, you know, we had some great players at Heidelberg and we emphasised skill, and I think we're still. You can compare the skill levels to those days. We were a lot more aggressive, I think, in those days because it was you know, back to the school of hard knocks. And but I think in terms of the game and the way it's presented, it's a complete different, you know, ball game.
How would you think, Joe, if the opportunity of those players when you were playing had this opportunity now?
Yeah.
Where would the game go?
Yeah, I mean, we were amateurs, I've got to say, but if we had the opportunity, and as an example here is that a lot of us, when we were going through the transition of youth to senior teams, we would obviously we're always attracted to go to Europe and trial out various teams. I had the opportunity to go to Roma in Rome and was there at Lazio and Lecce for quite a few months. And what was interesting was that the feedback that I was getting was that the technical coaching that I was being given, I was learning and absorbing a lot of the information, and I was learning very quickly, more so than the European athletes. So I think that the technique and the approach, if we had a lot more time to spend on our technique and develop our style, I think we would be up there, you know, as today.
You are handsome, articulate, thoughtful, well-dressed, and eloquent. Everything that we're not. Leave the panel now. Joe Angele, our special guest tonight.
Well, thank you very much for the comments. I can take my jacket off if you want. And I can...
I'm actually feeling a little bit of man love to sit here speaking.
Carl, we miss Gaz.
And I'm not ashamed to say so. Look, Joe, something you may be interested in, but certainly some of the viewers of the Locker Room may be interested in. I know we've got a lot, and we've got quite a few viewers on the Locker Room, but if you haven't checked out our YouTube page, not the YouTube page, of course, because that's something else entirely, the Facebook page for the Locker Room, it is, and I recommend you do this, if you want to take a journey down memory lane, we're getting wonderful postings from people right across the country, from clubs across the country, and there's old videos and there's old photographs. And if you love reminiscing about the great days of the NSL and the great days of Heidelberg United Alexander, I recommend you visit the Locker Room Facebook page. It is fabulous fun. Joe, go there and immerse yourself in the past for a little while.
Fantastic.
Don't forget, of course, the Locker Room brought to us by the Copacabana Club in Smith Street, Fitzroy. There's a nice pussy there walking through the back of the... that's just frightening. No, literally, it's a cat. We're at Casa del Sweetie, where anything can and will happen, inevitably.
Even on the webcam.
Bill Pargus, who's so obsessed with plastic bags, he's now starting to construct a house of plastic. So Billy Pargus...
Not designed by Joe, though.
Not designed by Joe.
What's underneath the bag?
Boom, boom.
Boost Juice, of course, Dougie Hodgson. Where's our Boost Juice?
Doncaster and Bayside and Frankston. Come and see us, guys. Always looking forward to seeing new customers.
Northcote City FC, Sydney Olympic FC, and Heidelberg United FC.
And the Melbourne Knights FC.
And the Melbourne Knights. I keep forgetting it. And do you know why I keep forgetting them? Because I've got no idea. I've got nothing.
What do you say?
Let's have a quick look through the local scene. Transfer window opens Monday, July 1.
Yeah, a lot of movement will be happening between clubs, as it happens every year this time of
Got
the year.
some gossip, J FOT, or you're just wasting airspace?
No, I'm just going to, well, I was going to say that in the local scene here in the VPL, one of our sponsors we've just put the kiss of death on them because they've just taken all before them, Northcote City. 10 games
undefeated.
10 games, undefeated, 9 wins, and only one one blemish there,
No,
which
he's
is a
done
draw
well.
against Bentley Greens.
Wazza's done a lot there.
It's fantastic
Well,
for Peter
Wazza.
Cotsiris and all his
Peter
group.
Cotsey and a bit of gossip, Peter, with all this NPLV stuff that's
I
going
did
on.
read some.
Peter has urged the people in charge of the FFV to meet with clubs like the Melbourne Knights and Green Gully who have not actually put in an expression of interest for the NPLV, which I think is a shame. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago, that clubs like the Melbourne Knights and Green Gully may not be involved in top flight anymore.
What about Southern Stars?
Southern Stars, that was the other thing that I mentioned. They're at the bottom of the ladder with only 2 points. They've pretty much told most of their senior squad that no moolah to pay them. So
They'll be-
you know what's
they'll be
funny?
encouraged
Not
by that,
funny.
wouldn't
It's not funny.
Yes,
Like,
it's not us, so it's
but you
illegal.
know what? If you went to work and done a bad job, would you get paid?
Well,
Or would you get the
public
sack?
servant, yeah.
Or would you get the
Public-
sack?
Not if
Have
you're
they,
in
at least
public-
I haven't seen the game, so I don't know. One, have they done a good job? Is the effort there? All the aboves, but have they not got the
well,
finance?
I think that's been the situation for quite a while. It's not just recently. It's been pretty much from earlier on in the season.
How do you guys go down at Melbourne Uni? James, you all right with the payments down there, the boys, the
Melbourne
Mars
Uni. Well, Melbourne Uni, we're a multicultural team because we're sort of made up of students from all over the world, which is
Fantastic.
really fantastic. But it's all done on love.
What
really.
teams do you play? Do you play against the old boys like
No,
Cameron Grammar?
we're actually in the 3rd division. Yes, indeed.
Cameron
We
Grammar
are,
boys?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's quite a few of the old Scotch and the old
Melbourne Grammar, I think, might
Melbourne
be
Grammar.
there.
That's right.
Cork
it's quite
sniffers. Bunch of cork sniffers, that's what you're saying.
well, it's
No
well,
wonder
not
you
really.
come here all stressed.
It's quite a competitive league, and
And then you have a
and I enjoy
Chardonnay
it.
afterward and look down on the little people.
Chateau
Yeah.
65.
And that's just fine, all right? So clearly you don't care what's happening with the Labor Party tonight as we speak.
So yeah, getting back to that,
As long as they can fund a few more stadiums in Australia and infrastructure, I think I'd be extremely happy, because I think that's what we need here. We need infrastructure, and that's the with all these
We certainly do.
with all these opportunities that we have, and new footballers that are learning the game. It's all about having infrastructure to be able to cater for them, and we don't have it. And game time is being talked about all over the world. And to have the game time, you need the infrastructure in place.
So, Miss Gillard, if you're
yes,
watching,
that's right.
you heard it here in the locker room.
I think
Well done.
she's probably got a couple of issues to consider tonight,
Yeah.
so we'll just let her go on that one. Just quickly. Heidelberg United,
That's true.
Alexander, how are they travelling in State 1?
State 1, we're just approaching the halfway in Victoria here, and in State 1, Heidelberg just out in front on 21 points, leading the way from Sunshine Georgies at 20 points, and the Moreland Zebras 19. So it looks like going to be a 3 or 4 way battle there
And then Sydney,
for the minor premiership. And
Sydney
we've got to
Lions.
mention our friends up north. One of our sponsors, of course, Sydney Olympic, find themselves after 12 rounds in 4th position, 22 points, and leading the way in New South Wales Premier League is the Bonnie Rig White Eagles with 29 points. So good luck to the Olympic boys up there.
A couple of games behind, the boys can pull it back.
All right, you're watching The Locker Room on this Wednesday evening, the second week of winter, and the big night for the Australian Labor Party and the Prime Ministership, of course, up for grabs. So it's kind of an exciting night. Before we go to Dougie's shirt, we've got to do a bit of one question reminiscing with our very special guest, Joe Angele. But before we go to Joe Angele, I'll just acknowledge the sponsors again. It's really important that you people at home understand this. And you know when I'm serious because I start pointing my finger. And I've never seen me do it before. And it kind of looks, because we're on a computer, to what do you call this?
Webcam.
A webcam. See, I can see myself do that. It's like...
We may go on Skype eventually.
Yes, of course, whatever. The Locker Room sponsor, we thank them again because, look, honestly, we're about 30 shows. Who would have thought? 30 shows of this crap. The Copacabana Club in Smith Street, Fitzroy, we love them down there. We love their Samba night, their Brazilian night, and the combination Samba and Brazilian night. I'm not even sure they have one, but if they do, they
Did you mention everyone loves a Brazilian?
Everybody loves a Brazilian with a Brazilian. From Brazil, of course. I mean, authentic Brazilians.
Are you going to Brazil next year, Blakey?
If there's a God in heaven,
Johnny?
yes.
Be a nice World
It's
Cup.
been a while. Billy Pargus at Prime Plastic Bags. Good luck with the plastic bag house, Billy.
Take one away.
Boost Juice, Dougie Hodgson's mob. Melbourne Knights, Northcote City, of course. Sydney Olympic and Heidelberg United Alexander. Joe Angele, I guess. Joe, we've just a couple of one questioners. We've got to put you on the spot. In your NSL days, your Heidelberg days, best player you played alongside?
Oh, very interesting question. Lots and lots of players. The one that I remember as probably one of the best at senior level, and I remember this because it was the only time when we played South Melbourne and Alice, we had a 10,000 crowd capacity at Olympic Village, and I remember the chant, Toro, Toro, Toro. So it was one Toro. You remember one Toro?
I do. I know.
Brilliant footballer. Brilliant footballer. And, I mean, he was with the club for a short time, but, you know, there were players like Theo Silamides, Charlie Yankos, of course, in defence. We were the backbone of Heidelberg during those years. But I felt that the skill level